Hello, James Reeves here, businessman, Washington County, Tennessee. I've run for county mayor 3 times, twice in the past election cycle. Once last year and 5 years ago. There's been 4 elections, 2 Republican primaries, and the general election, which I ran as an independent versus the current mayor of the county. Last year, lost by 139 votes, and I've always been a numbers guy, and I wanted to delve into the fact that us as a candidate and the other candidates that have run several local elections always lose in early voting. Sometimes it's just the way the vote is. And I did my own exit polling at early voting this year, and it was it didn't seem right. So I pulled the receipts of all the machines in the county, was able to take pictures of these receipts that showed how each machine voted. Definitely in the early voting machines, it shows who voted on the machine from each individual precinct. In doing so, I sat down to figure out why and who keeps voting in early voting, creating a loss for a candidate in early voting, but then win the day of the election, but still lose the election because early voting puts you so far behind. And in doing so, I came across something that kind of rocked my soul like an earthquake. I found directly that in the early voting machines in Jonesboro, out of the 10 machines that were used, 3 of them told the truth. They were within 1% of people who voted on the day of the election and comparing to them voting early voting. The other 7 machines were not. 2 of them were not a lot of votes, less than 100 votes per machine, and it's kind of hard to extrapolate, but the other machines had more votes. And they were off by as much as 22% when you took who voted coming in. And of course, initially, you just see this in Jonesboro in early voting, which I spent a lot of time at during early voting and did my exit polling, and realized that, okay, I got a problem in Jonesboro. So immediately you start thinking, what's going on? What happened to those machines? Why were 3 telling the truth and 7 lied, basically? Well, you got a short little window to contest the election. You're dealing with elected Republican judges. You don't know who's in on it, who's not in on it. The Tuesday before I was able to contest, I was in there getting some more information, basically the maintenance records of the machines, when they were turned on, how they were turned on since the last time they were reset with a new program. And it was said that even the paper had written up that I was going to contest the election, but it was pretty much I was still gathering evidence. And after that evidence I gathered, I realized that it wasn't likely just the machines in Jonesboro, is that it was every machine in the county was programmed to move votes. And of course, in confronting the election commission about this, it was like, it can't happen, you need to tell us how it happened. And my thing was, the numbers show that it happened, you need to tell me and help me find out how it did happen. Contact the machine people and say, hey, this is what we had, how did this happen? They didn't want to do that. In fact, we just bought brand new machines from the same company. I said, well, you got competing companies, ask them how these machines could have done that. No help. So I've had to mull this over for over a year now, because we're talking, this just happened last August, and of course I found it out pretty quick. And I gave the election commission in the county the actual proof that I had, true mathematical proof that something was wrong. And of course, I've had it on a YouTube video for anybody to see. Now I want to get into what I've come about over the past year now, we're closer to 10 months. And the reality is that no election official really anywhere in any state or any county can tell you what's in the machines. They're proprietary. Our own election official put her hand on it and says, I can't tell you if there's an Asian or a Chinese chip in this machine because it's proprietary. The programming is done by the machine. You can actually buy into it and do some of your own election programming, but it's all proprietary. So understanding that, let me ask you something. I figured it out that night. If these machines are in a room, okay, they're in a plastic case basically, And they're sitting there basically on all the time. They're on battery backup. That way, if you're at an election and you're running an election service and the power goes out, you can still do voting. Okay. So that being said, and I've looked into this, could these machines, and any machine in the country for that matter, have a chip on the motherboard that is set to receive, but not transmit? Sort of like Wi-Fi, except it never transmits. If it transmitted, you could walk up to it and go, okay, what are you doing? You're transmitting. It's like your car. Prime example, you got a receiver in your pocket, got a key. You press it. That car's sitting there waiting to receive information. Nobody knows if it can receive. We know it does, but can anybody tell me if these machines receive? No, we can't. It's proprietary. It doesn't take a very big chip on a motherboard. I mean, look at your phone that you carry around. It transmits and receives real well. Bluetooth apparatus transmits and receives pretty well. And you can be several feet from your phone, and this thing works great. This tiny little thing receives and transmits. And there's no way, if it just sits there and receives, to prove it otherwise. The reason I say this is because I've taken the time and pulled all the election receipts. Instead of me allowing me to take pictures, the election commission by authorization from Nashville says they'll have to make copies of all the receipts. I wasn't allowed to take pictures anymore. Don't know why. I have several copies that are blurry, but I don't want to get into that. Okay, but I was able to create a path in which the current mayor, he's on his second term now, was put in place by the machines. Okay, 3 times in Jonesboro. My particular election, last year, the Republican primary in May of last year, me 5 years ago in August, and then of course there was a Republican primary with 3 candidates. The interesting thing about that primary with 3 candidates, they actually stole from only one of the other candidates, moved, whatever the machines programmed to do, and the movement happened in the city early voting precinct. Mainly because this particular candidate was real strong. He was actually the mayor of the city at one time. So it can be seen, and the percentage aren't as heavy. But the interesting thing last year in my election and with the Republican primary is there one particular machine that told the truth both times. Now, how would you know if this receiver is working or not? You don't. You walk in the room, and I've been in the room, and they're in plastic, they're in plastic bins, the machine is, and if they're on all the time and you're able to transmit with something as simple as your phone, maybe you have a transmitter specifically designed to do this. This is speculation on my part, to be honest. I mean, because I've been asked to find out how it happened, and they've pretty much ignored the fact that it did happen. It's just their stance is that it didn't happen. And I'd like to say this truly, at the end of the day, I stayed quiet hoping that something would be done, something would be said, and it hasn't been. Okay. We know there's a problem in the country. Okay. I've been in politics for 30 plus years now. Not so much running politics, I mean just being part of it, going to meetings where I felt where I needed to be. I fought back a will tax in the county here several years ago until I got really involved in the county politics pretty heavy. And I'm going to be honest with everybody right now that's listening to this. I'm a man that doesn't really want to be county mayor. There, I said it out loud for you. It's just that I sit at the podium and I talk to people in the thing, and I watch the people of this, the people running the county, just running it for their buddies. It's no different than D.C. It's no different than any other state. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Get off that bandwagon. Let's be American together and realize that both of them are destroying the country at this point. I mean, I voted Republican most of my life. I grew up in West Palm, so there's sometimes I voted for a Democrat. I'm not going to lie about that. If you were in West Palm, 20 plus years ago, it was mostly Democrat. Donald Trump's from West Palm. He was a Democrat back then. You went with who was in power. You want to vote for the person that feels is going to be there for the people. And this is the problem we have. We What's the redress if 10% of the vote is being moved? Now think about that. Think about any election you've ever been around. 10%, just in your local stuff. I mean, we know it goes right up to the heavy stuff. You know what I mean? But locally, 10%. And can I prove it on a small precinct level? No, there's no way. In fact, if it wasn't for early voting, I couldn't prove it at all. It just can't happen. The problem is I'm particular, and the other person that ran last May are very strong in one part of the county. And that county happens to be near the county seat, where there's a lot of government employees, there's teachers. Those people voted. 12% of the voting people voted in this county. Well, I guarantee you a high percentage of that are people that work for the county, whether it's in the school system, whether it's in the cities, whether it's in the county offices, the sheriff's office, the police. Those people, it matters. It matters to their pay. It matters to them who's in charge. Okay? I'm in a very heavily Republican area, and nearly won as an independent. I didn't nearly won. The gentleman that's in there on his second term, and I've never conceded the second election because I didn't lose. I remember that night, I told everybody it was demoralizing. I was there. I was exit polling. Okay? I don't lie. It's not in me to lie. That's why I'm not afraid to say the truth, that I don't really want the job. It's just that I knew that I'm part of we the people, and that I could bring government, at least locally, back to the people. But no. And you think this is just happening in one county, in one state? I get voter integrity. Tennessee's voter integrity, number one. Okay, first off, who was number one? Georgia. Who's number two now? Still Georgia. Voter integrity has to do with voter integrity. In other words, you're checking the integrity of the voter as he comes in. Okay? You're proving that he has an ID. You're proving that he's a citizen. Okay? You're proving that he's not a felon. You're watching your voter rolls. This is what makes Tennessee number one. Well, there's only 19 states that require voter ID for absentee balloting and showing up. So you're never going to be, as long as they're doing that in Tennessee, you're never going to be under 19. What really gets me, though, is there's nothing in that survey, anywhere safe form, about machines. Okay, now let's get into the fact we bought the same machines and they have a paper trail now. There's no law in place to check that paper trail. Nothing. So what's it going to cost a regular Joe like me that owns a small garage that gets it and says, we got a problem, and we need to put somebody in there that isn't, if mass mandates show up, it's going to say, hey, you are responsible for your actions. Government is not there to hold your hand. This is the type of person I am. Always have been. And it's coming. We know it's coming. They've already pushed the limits once. I said, no, not on my watch. And yet, I got a shirt saying much like this. I said, it'd be easy for me to keep my mouth shut. I'm happily doing what I love to do. I've gotten older doing it. I've made a great living doing it. I have 4 children that I know their life is not going to be easier if I keep keeping my mouth shut. I don't lie. This happened. There's another video on my site that actually shows how it happened. I would love for somebody that is in the know can say, yeah, Reeves, you're wrong. Prove me wrong. Prove my math wrong. And math is one of my best subjects ever. If I've done the math and I've checked it twice, it's usually indisputable. And this is indisputable. It's just they asked me to prove it. How? Other than there's the math. I mean, what else have you got sometimes? And if it wasn't for early voting, I wouldn't have that. And there was a suggestion I go out and go with every voter. I know who voted in Jonesboro. I know, I got a list. Okay? I can pick it down to almost the machines they voted on. But they work for the county. They work for the sheriff's department. They work as a teacher, or they have a family member that does. Retribution happens in government. Okay, if you didn't think it does, go ask. It does. Okay, at least around here, and it wasn't any different in Palm Beach when I was growing up down there. So you can't. I wouldn't do it, and I don't have somebody in the county. We tried it. We made 100 phone calls to people on a voter list, and 30% of them that we got on the phone would, if they did tell us the truth, they said do not contact them again, or were just mad that we were contacting them, and I made most of the calls personally. So I knew that wasn't going to work. So where's the hard proof? It's in the math. I'm sorry, it is in the math. You can't have a place where early voting was held with 10 machines and 3 of them tells the truth within 2% margin of error, not by polling, by comparing the precincts to the day of the election and bringing those numbers back. 44% of the people that voted in this early voting precinct came from precincts where I won over 60% of the vote. One of the precincts was in the 70% vote. When you bring those people in and you start stealing votes from those people in mass in an early voting site, the machines start skewing. But I couldn't go on the day of the election to the one where I got 72% and prove anything by just the math of the machines. It shook my world when I found this. And I figured everybody would be like, let's deal with this. This is a problem. This is it. This is the proof that the machines were rotten on this particular election. I went back and proved May of last year. Went back and proved me 4 years ago, which I lost by 800 votes 4 years ago. But if you're stealing 10% on 11,000 votes, do the math. I win by 300. Okay, Republican primary last year. He lost by less than 400 votes. There was 13,000 votes. So he wins by 900 votes. This is the problem with my exit polling. I felt tremendously good. We didn't lose early voting this time. And then the numbers come out and I'm like, whoa, no way. And I know why it's no way at this point. So, you want to help? Great. If you want to accuse me of being a liar, join the club. But it happened. And it's going to continue to happen. Thank you.